The fire flickers in the dark. A woman crouches low, her child asleep on her chest, while shadows move just beyond the glow. Saber-toothed predators. Hunger, cold. But she's not alone. Around her, others sit, eyes watching, hands ready, hearts pounding in sync. They're not family, but they will die for one another. Not because they have to, but because they've learned how to trust, to speak, to dream. What made this possible? Not sharper teeth, not faster legs, but a secret weapon that no predator ever saw coming. One that rewrote the rules of evolution, the underdog species. Imagine standing barefoot in the grasslands of ancient Africa 2 million years ago. The wind is dry, the sun is punishing, and every sound in the distance might mean danger. You're hungry, tired, and compared to the predators lurking around, you're completely outmatched. You can't outrun a lion, you can't outfight a hyena. You don't have sharp claws, thick fur, or venom. No wings, no armor, no camouflage. In the grand hierarchy of the wild, humans were never supposed to be top of the food chain. We were the underdogs of evolution. But that's what makes the story so compelling, because somehow, despite all that, we made it. Not just survived, but thrived. So how did we do it? Let's rewind the tape. Early humans lived in a constant state of vulnerability. Death could come from anywhere. A predator, a fall, a disease, even another tribe. There were no permanent shelters, no stocked kitchens, just the open land, your feet, and whatever you could carry. And yet, even then, something was happening that would change everything. We began to observe, to notice patterns, to remember. Maybe someone realized that animal tracks always appeared near the river at dawn, or that the birds grew silent just before a predator arrived. These weren't random thoughts. They were mental shortcuts for survival. And then came the leap. Not just seeing the world, but imagining it, planning, anticipating, testing ideas. Suddenly, humans weren't just reacting to nature. We were thinking ahead. But thinking alone isn't enough to survive in a world full of danger. What mattered more was how we used those thoughts, how we turned knowledge into action. We began to craft tools, sharp rocks for cutting, sticks for digging, spears for hunting. At first, they were crude, but each new generation refined them. The wild hadn't changed. The predators were still stronger, faster, deadlier. But humans? We started playing a different game, a mental one, and it was only the beginning. The power of planning and problem solving. Picture a small group of early humans standing at the edge of a cliff, staring down. More than any weapon, turned fragile humans into apex predators. Instead of brute strength, we leaned into something smarter, strategy. Early humans began setting traps, driving prey into ravines, using coordinated ambushes. No lion does that. No bear sits down with its buddies to figure out the best time to strike. But humans did. And with every success, they gained more than food. They gained confidence. Because each hunt wasn't just about survival. It was a lesson. Success meant new tactics. Failure meant a painful but unforgettable education. And crucially, these lessons weren't kept to one person. They were shared, remembered, passed down. That's a massive evolutionary advantage. Most animals rely solely on instinct. But humans, we could learn and teach. That changed the game. And planning didn't stop at hunting. As the climate changed and resources shifted, humans began building adaptive lifestyles. Some seasons were brutal. Water disappeared. Herds migrated. So we learned to store food, track seasons, and even move as a group based on environmental clues. That flexibility, that creative thinking, is rare in nature. Think about it. A lion doesn't invent new hunting techniques each year, but humans did, constantly. That's the moment the tide turned in our favor. We may have lacked natural defenses, but we had the one trait that could overcome any obstacle: problem solving. And when brains beat brawn, survival becomes something more. It becomes progress. From survivors to innovators. Now imagine this: a storm has passed, and the sky is clearing. A group of humans gathers around the remains of a fire, not just for warmth, but for something far more important. They're experimenting. One person uses a stone to crack a nut more efficiently. Another figures out how to scrape animal hides with a sharper edge. Someone else discovers a new way to carry water using dried gourds. These aren't just random acts. They're part of something much bigger. This is the birth of innovation. See, early humans didn't just react to their environment. They manipulated it. When fire was discovered, maybe from a lightning strike or a volcanic spark, humans didn't just admire it. They studied it, controlled it, used it to cook, ward off predators, stay warm, and eventually even shape tools. Fire turned night into day. It turned raw into cooked, cold into comfort, and chaos into control. But perhaps even more transformative than fire itself was the decision to share it. This is where something truly extraordinary began. Humans started passing knowledge down, not just through imitation, but through teaching, using gestures, sounds, and eventually language. With each generation, knowledge didn't disappear. It grew. Suddenly, progress wasn't limited to the individual. It became collective, functioning like superorganisms, thinking, learning, adapting together. And that's the secret. We didn't just survive because we were smart. We survived because we shared that intelligence. Because we could look at the world, ask, what if, and actually test the answer. From stone tools to fire pits, from shelters to strategies, we were no longer just surviving. We were transforming the world around us. And this set the stage for something even more powerful. A force that would unite tribes, build cultures, and rewrite the very rules of evolution. That secret weapon? It wasn't just intelligence, it was connection. From signals to speech. Close your eyes and imagine a world before words. No names, no stories, just grunts, gestures, and glances. You could survive, maybe, but you'd be trapped inside your own head. Now imagine, for the first time, someone pointing at danger, making a sound, and others understanding. That moment, that's not just communication, that's revolution. Because once early humans started connecting through sound and symbol, everything began to change. At first, communication was probably simple. Warning calls, basic signs, emotional expressions. But even these crude signals had power. If you could warn your group about a predator before it struck, that was survival. If you could signal a better path to water or food, that was leadership. And if you could bond with others through shared emotions, fear, joy, sorrow, you weren't just part of a group anymore, you were part of a tribe. Over time, vocal cords evolved, brain structures expanded, and those scattered sounds became structured. Patterns emerged, rhythm, repetition, meaning, and slowly speech was born. We don't know what the first true word was, but when it came, it would have lit up the brain like fire, because words are shortcuts to thoughts. They collapse complex ideas into sounds you can pass to someone else in an instant. A single syllable can carry a memory, a warning, a feeling. With speech, humans could collaborate faster, learn faster, and, most importantly, trust faster. And with trust came something no other species had ever achieved on this scale: cooperation beyond bloodlines. Speech turned small survival groups into flexible, intelligent units. And as language spread, ideas flowed. People started naming things, labeling tools, describing places, sharing tactics. Knowledge wasn't stuck in one brain anymore. It could travel. That's what gave humans the edge. We weren't just thinking, we were thinking together. Gossip, trust, and the rise of big tribes. Okay, let's be honest. Track relationships, reputation, and behavior without personally witnessing everything. That's where gossip came in. Gossip wasn't just idle chatter, it was social glue. It allowed people to exchange valuable information. Who's trustworthy? Who lied during the last hunt? Who shares food? And who hoards it? In other words, gossip became an invisible social ledger. It helped early humans enforce rules, build alliances, and keep cheaters in check, all without needing a formal justice system.